Many of you from across the country sent me this viral Facebook post showing this woman's husband after he was brutalized by police officers in West Virginia. After she reached out to me yesterday, I drove 3.5 hours and hit the ground running there in St. Mary's, West Virginia. I talked to witnesses. I talked to the woman who put up the Facebook post, who is the wife of the victim. I examined the scene of the incident, and I'm not even joking when I say that I am shocked at what I found. This is one of the most egregious situations I've encountered in 20 years of corruption in West Virginia. We've been spied on, witnesses threatened, even other cops are worried about us. Come along with me for the ride, and I guarantee you, you will be talking about this one with your friends and your family for years to come.
When they pulled him up off the concrete, he was bleeding so bad. I mean, it was, the pictures, it made the pictures look mild.
Immediately, my heart just sank. I was like, this guy's older, and 3 full-grown officers on him like that. To me, it was just unnecessary.
Well, the police report said they assisted him to the ground.
No, they didn't assist him to the ground. No, they took him to the ground hard, and then they kept him on the ground. And then I watched them load him up in a cruiser too, and they threw him in there pretty hard as well.
The town of St. Mary's, West Virginia is very small, a population of only 1,847 according to the 2020 census. The city was established in 1849 by Alexander Creel, who reportedly named it after he experienced a vision of the Virgin Mary while traveling by boat on the Ohio River, where the town is located. One of St. Mary's most distinctive features is its freight train tracks that run straight down the middle of their main street. St. Mary's is the county seat of the small county of Pleasants County, West Virginia, and it's really within the metropolitan area of Parkersburg, West Virginia, or Marietta, Ohio, just across the river. This is Cherry Street in St. Mary's, where on March 12th, just a few days ago, 3 police officers showed up to confront 69-year-old disabled military veteran Barry Allen about his white truck parked along the roadway, which they claim had not been moved in 3 days, which he denies. I visited the scene for myself yesterday and interviewed witnesses so that I could determine exactly what did happen and did not happen on March 12th. This is my conversation with Barry's wife, Sally Allen, who is absolutely as sweet as can be. Tell me what happened.
Okay, I was looking out the window. My husband was watching television, and I looked out our window and saw a sheriff sitting blocking the alley, and a city police car also in front of it.
You looked out which window?
We live upstairs.
Okay.
I could see the city officer's car parked here.
Where was he at the time?
Watching television. He's sitting
up there?
Yeah, he was sitting on the sofa.
All right, so you look out the window, you see police cars out here. What happened next?
I told him, I said, I bet you they're out here over your stuff in your yard, because his yard, is a mess. I said, you probably ought to go talk to him.
By the way, like me, Barry is apparently a junk collector, though unlike me, he likes to keep his stuff outside in the yard. This is apparently something that has pissed off the city in the past. This is what sparked the argument that led to what happened. It was conversation over the stuff in Barry and Sally's yard. The chief of police was visibly upset about it. That led to Barry on the asphalt. The police report said that they received a call regarding trash impeding the sidewalk in an open dump at 205 Cherry Street. While speaking with a Barry Allen about the junk laying around on the sidewalks and the junk in his yard, he started using profanities while we were standing on the public sidewalk and stepping towards officers in a provoking manner. This officer advised the accused to stop cursing and using profanities. A few moments went by and he continued to use the profanities. This officer went to place the accused under arrest, at which time he resisted and refused to give up his hands. This officer and other officers assisted the accused to the ground. While on the ground, after multiple commands to give his hands, and still refused.
He got down here. I didn't even bother to look out the window for a couple minutes or so, and then I looked again to see what they were doing. And
You saw them talking?
Yeah.
Where were they?
Right, standing right over here.
Can you show us?
Area. Right here, he was parked over there, maybe little farther down because I'm noticing that he was over that line, and they might have, gave him a ticket for that.
Where was your husband standing? Right here where you are?
Right through here, yeah.
And where were the officers standing?
Just kind of around. I mean, it wasn't, nothing volatile or anything. They were just stinging me. So I went to the restroom. I come back. I look out the window again, and I see they're surrounding him. I mean, you could just tell. This one officer, the really tall one, was standing here just, this actually with both hands, pointing to all this out here.
It's a little bit difficult to hear with the road noise, but she's talking about the chief of police being upset about the junk in the yard. I mentioned that St. Mary's has a population that's very low, only like 1,800. It's basically one of these rural towns in West Virginia that does not need a police department, yet they have one. From my understanding, they only have 3 police officers, one of whom is the chief of police. You'll hear him mentioned as being personally involved. I believe this is what he looks like. The other police officer who was involved, who ended up writing the police report, his name is Anthony Wentz.
He turned back around and started heading toward Barry, and Barry's standing over with his back to me, and I come running down the stairs, and by the time I got down to the stairs, Barry's leg, he'd been here, somewhere in this area, and he was laying, I would say about right here, face first, arms like this, bleeding. I mean, just bleeding. Everybody's yelling. The officers are yelling.
Was this truck here?
Yeah, but it was pulled up just a little.
Was that trailer here?
Yes.
So it looked just like this.
Pretty much, but it might have been a little bit more spread apart.
The last time you looked out the window, where was Barry?
Not very.
Which direction was he facing? So Barry's standing right here, facing this way.
Uh-huh.
What was he doing when you last saw him? He was just standing
and then he was laying. Yeah. That's the wife. She's watching that. She's talking.
What she just said there is that the white SUV that passed by in the background was the wife of a deputy who was basically spying on us.
Wife. She's watching that. She's talking.
And that is something that was bizarre that happened the entire time I was there. Even though I said nothing publicly about the fact that I was going there, somehow they knew. And it was obvious that we were being watched by multiple individuals the entire time we were there. It was bizarre. It was like this small town had eyes. And that led to something actually very bizarre happening, which I'll get to later. What you saw concerned you, so you were coming outside?
Yes, I ran downstairs, and by the time I got here, they were all over here. And I don't know, Gary says that there was one on his head, and the woman I spoke with said there was an officer, that's the way they said it, on his head. I don't know what that means. I saw everybody leaning down like this. I don't know if anyone was actually on the ground with him.
By the time you got outside, they were already on the ground.
Seconds, yeah. It was just seconds before I was here. I ran straight down, and he was on the ground.
Unfortunately, in the seconds that it took Sally to run downstairs from the time that she peered out her upstairs window and noticed that the cops started to appear agitated and sort of surrounding her husband, in the few seconds that it took to get down there, boom, they already had him on the asphalt in the road. Across the street is a bank that's open. Did you notice in the background as she was talking, this pickup truck pulls up and the guy gets out? Notice how that truck would have had a perfect view of the spot that she's showing me right there. As it turns out, there was an eyewitness who saw the entire thing, who just happened to pull up in his truck at that bank at the right time on March 12th. Privately, he came forward, and yesterday he agreed to be interviewed on camera because he thought it was the right thing to do. So while Sally can't tell us exactly how her husband ended up on the ground because she was running down the steps, this guy can. So you used the bank that was across the street where this happened?
Yeah, Long Reach Federal Credit Union. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we had just pulled in. We were pulling into Long Reach. We get there and make our deposits every week usually on Monday, Tuesday, somewhere in there. We pulled in, and I looked over and I saw, out of curiosity, I saw the 3 cruisers and I saw the old man out there, and I saw a white pickup truck. My first thoughts was like, I don't know why, but I just stayed in the truck because I wanted to watch it, see what was going on, and just curiosity, I guess. And so I was looking over, watching everything, and it looked to me, and my wife said the same, it looked to me like there were the officers were like just looking in the bed of the truck at the stuff that was in it. It looked like the tailgate was down, like he had been unloading it or something, you know. But there was no like screaming, there was no yelling, there was no cussing. It looked very calm and mellow. I looked straight ahead for a minute. I looked back over, I mean, not even a minute. I looked back over, and all of a sudden, all three officers have got him, and they're trying to put his hands behind his back, and they're taking him to the ground. And my wife saw that when they took him to the ground, he got back up slightly, and I guess they shoved him back to the ground, and his head was actually in the street off the sidewalk. And I was like, I looked at my wife and said, "Oh my God, what in the world did this guy do?" You know, I was like, he didn't do anything. What, you know? And immediately, my heart just sank. You know, I mean, I was like, this guy's older, and you know, 3 full-grown officers on him like that. You know, and so they got him in handcuffs. Now she came out. His wife came out, and she was probably 15 feet back from him, but she wasn't like trying to be abusive or anything like that, but she was pointing at him, she's saying, trying to tell him that he had health problems, that he was diabetic, you know, be careful, please go easy on it. You know what I mean? She was trying to explain that to him. And the one officer, I did hear this with my window up on the truck. I heard, "Get back or we'll arrest you too," you know. And that's when I determined that I wasn't going to get out of the truck, because I'm like, I don't want them to try to arrest me or take me down to the ground for trying to intervene with but it wasn't right. And I kind of wanted to intervene. So it took everything I had not to get out of the truck, you know, and say something.
So after these 3 cops took Barry to the ground, including this chief of police who looks like he could have been an offensive lineman on my college football team, Sally's out on the sidewalk upset, and she's yelling at him that her husband is a diabetic and that he may not fully grasp what's happening. As I mentioned, there were 2 St. Mary's officers there, and then there was 1 deputy whose name I don't know from the Pleasants County Sheriff's Office. That deputy, who hopefully may have been the only one wearing a body cam, gets up, takes a break from injuring this elderly man, and he walks aggressively over towards Sally, and he threatens to arrest her. Now, that's what the witness observed, and that's what Sally told me as well. He was on the ground. Was he face down?
Yeah, he was face down. He is laying on his face like this. He's screaming, "Let me up." At this point, he is yelling, "Let me up, let me up," just over and over again. I'm about right there, and I am screaming for him to stop. I was right there when I heard him really bad. I'm yelling, but I know I yelled that he's old. And I think I said he was senile, because I was afraid that. And one officer on this side with the body cam, said he had the body cam, jumped up. He come running at me and told me, he was like screaming, "Either shut my mouth or I would be arrested too." So I just I stood back there. So
where were you standing at that time? Just show me right.
I honestly don't know how far back I was. I know I was far away from Barry, so I'm thinking probably about right here. But honestly, it could have been there too. He got up from Barry, whatever he was doing with Barry.
The best you can remember, what do you recall him saying?
He either said, "Shut your mouth," or "Shut your effing mouth," which I said something, "You're hurting him," and I can't remember that part. Like, that just really would have, I was so upset I wanted to get to Barry. And right at that point, all I cared about was getting over there.
Now, in case you were thinking that this entire town, this neighborhood must hate this guy's yard because it has so much junk in it, that is not true, and I can prove it. Literally, as I'm standing there on the sidewalk talking to Sally, this guy in overalls comes up, like YouTube video being recorded or not, interview being conducted or not. He saw something he wanted in there, and the response to that is, I think it's just so telling about the relationship between this married couple, about their nature, their personality, and really about how nice and reasonable they are.
Sorry to bother you. Is stuff for sale? That stuff there beside you. This? Oh, okay. Well, I just saw a window over there. I said, "Man, I like to have that window." So I thought I'd stop and see. Okay, we're cool. I thought, yeah, don't hurt to ask, right?
There's some good stuff in there.
Yeah, he loves it.
A couple nice signs.
You talk to him, he'll probably give it to you. He's just a little frightening.
Well, where's he around? Oh, all right.
Upstairs. If you just go up and knock on the front door.
You sure you won't mind?
No, go ahead. Right up there.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. I have this all the time. I'm sorry, but he was laying on the ground.
Because as we continued, the dude is just shopping through the junk. And I'm pretty sure I saw him leave with something, and I don't think he paid for it. I think it was just given to him. I mean, these really are good people.
You know what? He was even farther out than I thought. They propped him up right here. They propped him on the car, right here in his tire.
So where on the ground do you actually think he was? I mean, it looks like there's broken glass.
That's probably this good stuff. It was, like I said, his truck was pulled up just a little bit farther, so I'm going to say no farther out than right here.
Was there ever any blood on the ground?
I didn't look. When they pulled him up off the concrete, he was bleeding so bad. I mean, it was, the pictures, it made the pictures look mild. And I was screaming at that point. They picked him up right here.
But yeah, you can see if you rub somebody on this ground. I mean, this is some rough asphalt.
His doctor picked that out of his arm for about 20 minutes or half an hour or so. He said that he was picking some pieces of stick and asphalt out of his arm.
So his doctor said that even after he was released from jail, they still had to pick pieces of asphalt and sticks out of his lungs.
Yeah, they didn't do anything other than dab some kind of maybe an antibiotic or some kind of something maybe for infection or something. They were dabbing a cloth on his arms. But when they picked him up, they drug him backwards and just kind of flipped him up here, and he passed out. I mean, it was just a moment, but he was just screaming. He was calling mother. When they pulled him up, he was saying that, and then he just nodded off, and he went over like this.
So I went in the bank and I let the ladies know what was going on out there, and they were just like, oh, this and that, and came back out and there was 2 ambulances there, and they were treating his wounds or something. But after that, I left the bank.
Could you tell that he had wounds?
Oh yeah, shoot, yeah. They had his arms, and there was all 3 officers grabbing him. Now what happened after I went in the bank, I don't know. I went in there I was only in there for a couple minutes. When I came back out, the ambulances, there were 2 ambulances there. I can't recall the names on the ambulances, but there were 2 there. He was leaned up against the cruiser with his head near the step, and it looked like they were getting ready to address his wounds and stuff like that. So after that, I left the bank, so I don't know what went on after that. And the head wound was from where they pushed his head into the pavement. I saw those wounds, and on his hand, too. He had some on his hand,
Did they have him handcuffed behind his back?
Yeah, they had him behind his back, handcuffed, yeah.
Did they tell you what he was under arrest for?
No. Even after it was over, I never. They called an ambulance. The ambulance didn't get here right away, and there was an ambulance that was over here at the bank that stopped and treated him, and they were really nice. Our city people it took forever for them to get here. Once the ambulance arrived, it was like a switch. They literally was, Mrs. Allen, can I help you with this or da-da-da?
Did they take him in an ambulance or a police car?
Police car.
And then I watched them load him up in a cruiser, too, and they threw him in there pretty hard as well.
We got to the magistrate court. They're all in the magistrate's little office right outside the courtroom. The magistrate come back in. She took all the paperwork, and then it was the weirdest thing. She offered to clean him up herself. She said, are you okay, Mr. Allen? Do you need water? Do you need this? Do you need that? And then she's like, do you want me to clean up some of those wounds for you a little bit? I said, well, I'm going to take you to the emergency room, and they can clean up that dried blood there.
And then after you took him to the emergency room, the doctor was still picking asphalt out of his wounds?
Oh, yeah. They did x-rays on both arms, an MRI on his head because, momentarily passed out. They did all the cleaning up. They didn't do everything that they did up here was very superficial. They literally just put, I think it was a swab of some kind, and wiped it on and wrapped him up, and then they cleaned him up.
And then the pictures that you had posted on Facebook, did you take those pictures?
All over.
And that was after the hospital or before?
The bad ones were right before.
Somewhere before the summer.
The ones that were bloody was before in the magistrate court and here. And the ones that were where it's like you could tell that they'd been cleaned up and dried out, was a half ago.
It's really insane here that the police officers didn't take their arrestee, whom they had in handcuffs in their police car, to the hospital. They just went to take him to jail to process him. But it was daylight hours. His wife was able to bond him out before he was transported to jail. And even though the judge herself offered to dress this man's wounds, which I have never heard before, Sally bonded him out and took herself straight to the emergency room. I have the medical records. He was slammed to the ground by police officers, injuring his forearms, shoulders, and head. It actually says 4 police officers, but I'm sure it looked like to the doctor it was 4 officers instead of 3, given the damage. Injuring his forearms, shoulders, and head. The incident happened at 2 p.m. Since the incident, he notes that he has a headache and his left shoulder hurts. He thinks that they pulled abruptly backwards when they were handcuffing him. The doctor noted extensive skin abrasions on both of his forearms and hands with debris from the wounds. That's referring to the asphalt and sticks that the ER doctor said he had to pick out of Barry's wounds. Due to the patient's extensive skin abrasions, we irrigated the wound and applied lidocaine gel to the area. After 15 minutes, he reported this significantly helped decrease pain. At this point, I removed as much hanging tissue that I was able in order to help assist healing. Got that hanging tissue. The cops never took him to the hospital. Also, get this. It says patient also reports that the cops are claiming he was intoxicated at the time of the incident. He claims this is not true. He requested that he be drug tested to verify his claims. So they did a urine tox screen, which revealed no evidence of opiates, oxycodone, or any other drugs or alcohol. The most important thing we can analyze here is this police report, which came out of a criminal complaint, a charging document, which means that it was submitted to a judge by the police officers under oath. This is their story that they have painted themselves into a corner with about what happened and what did not happen. They said they were there regarding allegations regarding the junk. In other words, no real crime. They claimed that they were just standing on the public sidewalk talking to him, and he began using profanities with them. They say they advised him to stop cursing and using profanities, and that a few moments went by, and he continued to use the profanities. So at that point, and this is their story, at that point, this officer went to place the accused under arrest. Okay, under arrest for what? They're arresting him basically for a non-crime, and worse than that, for protected First Amendment activity. So this officer went to place the accused under arrest, at which time he resisted and refused to give up his hands. This officer and other officers assisted the accused to the ground. That is their story. They assisted the accused to the ground. So I asked the eyewitness about this. Is that what happened? Did they assist Mr. Allen to the ground?
They took him to the ground hard. To me, it was just unnecessary.
Well, the police report said they assisted him to the ground.
No, they didn't assist him to the ground. No, they took him to the ground hard, and then they kept him on the ground. And then I watched them load him up in a cruiser too, and they threw him in there pretty hard as well.
Did you ever see the old man like actively appearing to fight with the officers?
There was nothing. No.
You see him like swinging, trying to punch or trying to kick?
No swings, no punches, no kicks. I don't know if he said something verbally or not, but still, that doesn't constitute taking a 70-year-old man to the ground with 3 officers. You know what I mean? I don't know verbally what was said, but there was no everything looked calm and mellow to me. When we pulled in, I just thought there was 3 officers, parked there, and then his truck, and there was a bunch of stuff in the back of the truck, and he was standing here, and they were standing here, and they kind of looking in the back of the truck. I thought my first thought was that maybe the guy had something stolen out of his truck or something stolen from his property. That was my first thought. Luckily, I stayed in the truck long enough to see that wasn't what it was about. You know what I mean?
So before the officers went hands-on with the old man, you didn't see the old man getting aggressive with the officers or try to attack them in any way?
No, I wouldn't testify if I did. I wouldn't be willing to testify if I saw something aggressive, from him. They grabbed the guy's hands and took him behind his back, and he's kind of stumbling a little bit, trying to, but I mean, 70 years old, you know what I mean? And then they just took him straight to the ground,
Did you see them strike the old man at all?
The one had his hand, I believe, had his hand on his head and pushed his head down, you know what I mean?
When you say the one, do you know which one that was?
I believe the one on that side of him would have been the officer with the beard, the bigger guy.
Were they all wearing uniforms?
No. The chief of police was not wearing a uniform. He was in, I believe, jeans and a t-shirt.
So you know which one the chief of police was?
Yes, I do.
Is that the one that was pushing his head down?
Yeah.
into the asphalt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you recall whether all three of the officers were involved in taking him to the ground?
All three of them were involved. Yeah. Yeah. All three of them took him to the ground. Yeah. They had him on his stomach. Yeah. And then they went to get him up, and then they pushed him back down. And that's when my wife said that they shoved his head into the pavement. I saw it too, but for some reason they went to get him back up or something, and then they pushed him back down.
When they pushed him back down, like what part of his body hit the ground?
His head. Yeah. Yeah. His head went into the pavement. And,
what you saw bothered you?
oh, for sure. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. It still bothers me just to think about it. Because I have fond respect I've always been respectful of law enforcement because I was raised that way, but I also have fond respect for elderly, and I just think that somebody at that age.
Based on what you saw, it looks like the police officers were reacting just to whatever the man said.
Yeah, I
like
would say.
They had like a violent physical reaction to whatever words were coming out of the guy.
Like I said, when I pulled into the bank, it looked like they were just having a gentle conversation. And then I looked away for not even a minute and looked back, and all of a sudden they're grabbing him and trying to take him to the ground and then pushing him into the pavement. And,
the manner in which they took him to the ground, that bothered you?
Yes, very much so. Yeah, it was uncalled for. It was.
And then once they had him on the ground, the way they treated him on the ground, did that also
Yes.
bother you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then, I was very appalled by it. I told my wife, I said, and so when I saw the pictures on Facebook, I immediately reached out to the lady and I said, listen, I saw everything. If you want me to testify, I'll testify, because it wasn't right, I wouldn't testify if I thought something different. Like if I saw the man take a swing at him or even try to run from him, if I saw like running from the police or a swing or resisting, and he wasn't even resisting.
I want to take this guy home.
You want to take him home?
He
Yeah.
is so cute,
Isn't he?
and he likes to go with you, probably.
Oh, everywhere, yeah.
Like, doesn't care where you're going.
He'll get mad if I
He
don't
wants to
take him
go.
with me.
Yeah, he wants to go.
Yeah, he'll get mad if I don't take him with me.
So this is where it gets really bizarre. I've had law enforcement officers who are familiar with this area warn me about this spot, and now I believe it. I've been some shady places, but this one takes the cake. Like I said, it was like the hills have eyes. We are being watched. As we're standing there, this guy starts like creeping up in an SUV. So I tell my assistant, start recording, like he's going to do something. And he sort of creeps up and he pulls up. He rolls down his window. I end up talking to him. He introduces himself as a private investigator. He says that he was sent by the public defender. So I pointed out where Barry was, and he was going to go interview Barry, allegedly for a public defender. And I didn't trust him. I had a bad feeling about him. Apparently, after we left to go interview the eyewitness, he apparently sort of began to threaten Sally and Barry. From my understanding, he sort of started telling them, pressuring them to plead guilty right away and to no longer talk to me because you can't use profanity with police officers. I've never heard anything like this. Who is he working for? They haven't even spoken to this public defender who allegedly sent this investigator, who's telling them they better not talk to me again, pressuring them that they need to go plead guilty to this right away. I mean, that's absolutely insane. If there is a public defender looking out for them who has not chosen to even speak with them directly, why would he send somebody to pressure them or ask them to plead guilty to a non-crime under circumstances where the state has not provided discovery showing the evidence against them, where they haven't been able to review any body cam footage that allegedly exists? Why the hell would they plead guilty when he's not guilty of anything? I mean, they charged him with disorderly conduct for using profanity with police officers. And I've litigated this before. The West Virginia disorderly conduct law creates a possibility for a criminal charge due to a subject's expression of profanity under limited circumstances, only where the person is in a public place where he disturbs the peace of others by violent, profane, indecent, or boisterous conduct or language, and is requested to desist by a law enforcement officer and doesn't. In 2015, the West Virginia Supreme Court said that the word others in that law does not include cops. It does not include law enforcement officers. It has to be some other third party who was present and actually offended by the individual's conduct in order to commit the criminal offense under West Virginia law of disorderly conduct. In case this private investigator who's practicing law without a license wants to look that case up, it's called Maston versus Wagner, West Virginia, 2015. Not only that, but the law is clearly established that we have a First Amendment right to express profanity during an interaction with law enforcement. The U.S. Supreme Court said that in Cone versus California in 1972, again in Lewis versus City of New Orleans back in 1974. But I guess it would be great for the cops here if nobody ever had to see that body cam that may exist because the defendant just suddenly pled guilty before even getting to see it himself. I didn't even think of that. I figured there's no way they're going to wiggle out of this one. I mean, these cops are cooked. They injured this old man. They painted themselves into a corner with their police report, writing themselves that they had no justification to do what they did. They didn't take him to the hospital. Then, oops, it went viral, and now they're in trouble. I mean, this is absolutely insane. I just had a feeling that I had to get to this place as soon as possible, and I'm glad that I did. Because I don't think, in my opinion, it was not a coincidence that that guy showed up while I was right there. And that his primary objective apparently was not to help them, but to stop me. And who would that help? That's my question. Who would that help? If this victim, this old man, this military vet, if he pled guilty, even if he got no jail time, no fine, who would that help? That's my question. And I have a lot more questions. And I'm going to get down to the bottom of all of it. Their only defense is going to be to attack me, but I have nothing to do with it. I'm just trying to learn the truth and show it to people. What happened here is bad cops were caught red-handed, and now we have to follow through. We can't let them threaten and silence witnesses. They're sure as hell not going to threaten and silence me. And now that you know about this, it's too late. If you want to do your part, share this footage. Make sure everybody knows what these 3 police officers did in St. Mary's, West Virginia. But the cover-up is always worse than the crime. And frankly, I'm already shocked at what's happening there. What else have they done if they think they can cover this up? So follow along by subscribing both here and at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. And I'll let you know as soon as I have an update on this. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.